Hello friends, this is Dr. Amarjeet Kaur, Professor of Accounting and Business Communication at the Department of Management, Gurugram University, Gurugram. I am heading the Department of Management as Chairperson and Dean for Faculty of Commerce and Management. I have authored 10 books and 56 research papers so far, and the learning is still on. So it's my privilege that I am with you this day to talk about cross-cultural communication. This is a very interesting topic, very deep topic to understand, and since it has a link with the culture. So friends, let's just think, why is it so that many of us from the childhood start believing that we have to celebrate a festival with new dress, a Diwali wearing new dress, or we have to do Ganesh Puja on the beginning of new, or we have to, while stepping out, we should not be, ask someone from the behind, or something, Tuesdays we should not eat non-veg, etc., etc. There are so many different beliefs in different cultures, in different societies, in different people. So basically, I am referring to cultural backgrounds. Culture is basically, a belief which is shared by others, a value system or assumption by group of people, right? And that is being passed on from one person to another person, from one group to another group. Your parents may have passed on to you that the importance of Diwali and how to celebrate it, the way it should be celebrated, how to conduct yourself on Tuesdays, on Thursdays, on weekends, on a fast day, etc., etc. Right? So we have a culture of doing Karwa Chauth in Indian culture, right? That's a fast. So concept of fasting for different gods and goddesses. So basically, I am referring to the shared belief, the shared value system, the assumptions group of people have, and they keep on, passing it to others. So this is a learning from one another, right? Which actually affects, the behavior of others, the attitude, the perspective. So what is the correct way to think, act or feel about any particular event or happening or situation, right? So culture is a very, very important aspect of our life, and it consists all those beliefs or shared beliefs, shared value system and assumption. And the moment we say culture, shared belief, it has repercussions, it has effect on many things. The culture influences the language, the word we speak, right, and our behavior subsequently. So culture influence to that extent that how do we conduct, how do we carry ourselves, how do we dress, how do we respond, how do we speak, everything, our complete behavior is affected by the culture we live in, and which comes from the shared belief, shared value system, right? So that's why the two people, from different culture, when they meet, they not only have the distinct cultural background, but they have a different way to communicate, right? Certainly, people from different culture have different backgrounds, agreed, with due respect, but it affects the communication as well, because my area here is to talk about communication. So this is what the culture is and how it is linked to communication. Now, there's a very important thing, very unique thing, interesting thing about culture. Most of us have a belief that our culture or my culture is better than other culture. So we call it as Ethnocentrism. So it's a word which is used to understand, or which rather indicates that the mindset of people where one believes that my culture is superior to others, right? So my culture is superior and others' culture is inferior. So this is an ethnocentrism. So this mindset, can become a barrier in effective cross-cultural communication. What is cross-cultural communication? I will come to it. I am just discussing the background, that what is culture, what is ethnocentrism, that mindset where we are perceiving ourselves better than the other culture people, right? It's just a perception, as belief about oneself, or the mindset about oneself, or one's culture, right? So with this background, now let's talk about one very important theory which is given by L. Underwood, which is known as Iceberg Theory. So iceberg is used as a metaphor to describe culture, to illustrate what is tangible in a culture, what is intangible parts of a culture. So when we talk about culture, most of the people, we talk about tip of the iceberg, right? So as we have an iceberg, just have a look at this picture. So the ice field, if you look at the picture, we have ice at the top. Some part of the picture is having white color, which is looking like ice, right? So iceberg, but it has about 90% the part beneath, under it, right, which is actually indicating the real culture. But whereas most of the people, when they refer to culture, right, so they talk about only the tip of the iceberg, which we call as 10% of the object, right, and rest is 90%, which is basically the iceberg, the depth of the culture, so which is below the water line, so it is under the water. So this 10% people, the 10% of the talk which is about a culture is about the artificial things. How do they eat, or what do they eat, or what are their office etiquettes, or their food habits, their movie habits, their reading habits, etc., etc. They are very superficial things. That is just the 10% of the real picture. 90% is not visible, not known to others, and that is the deep culture we talk. How people start believing things, how people start having that, the mindset we just talked, the mindset of superiority. It has something very deep, it has to do something with the deep roots. So this cultural background affects the cross-culture communication and communication for that matter, for sure, right? So with this background in mind, when we know what is that culture we talked about, ethnocentrism, then we talked about the iceberg concept. With this background, let's understand that what is cross-culture communication. So the cross-cultural communication is an area of communication explaining that how people form different cultures, different backgrounds, they communicate. So if somebody is coming from X culture, another is coming from Y culture, how would they interact with each other, right? So people with different cultural background, their communication, and this is the study about it, right? So in similar and different ways among themselves, because the people from the same culture will communicate with themselves differently than the person from one culture to the another culture, right? So which is we call as across cultures. Okay, so one is communicating within the same culture, and another is communicating outside the culture, means across cultures. Okay, so this is, when we study this, we call it as cross-cultural communication. So how do they communicate within the culture, and how do they communicate across culture? So basically we are studying communication only, right? That is our crux here. So this concept of cross culture tries to explain that how people with different cultural background communicate with each other, because it's very, very important. Why? Nowadays companies are becoming multinational. We do not have companies where we have only people from one culture, right? We would have companies across the world, across the globe, with people from different cultural background. And unless employees understand or honor or respect the cultural differences amongst themselves, there's a likelihood that this will become a barrier in communication. And the moment we have barrier in effective communication, it is going to affect the outcome, the output of the company, the workforce. The results for that matter are going to be adversely affected. Okay, so cross-cultural communication deals with exchange of information. For that matter, we have discussed many a time what communication is. Communication is always exchange of information between sender and receiver, right? So when this exchange of information is happening between people who belong to different cultures, it is cross-cultural communication. Very simple, right? Communication is exchange of information between sender and receiver, and the cross-cultural communication, the exchange of information between people who come from different cultural background. As simple as it is. So now it's important to specify that it's not necessary the exchange of word is happening. It's not that verbal communication is taking place between the two people. Even in a cross-cultural communication, the communication can take place just non-verbally, right? The sender and receiver, if they are trying to trying to share information, it will be considered cross-culturally, irrespective of the fact they do not know each other's language, right? If a smile on the face, smile is something we all know is universal. I have mentioned it many a times. So certainly the other person will understand the language of smile. The anger in eyes, no words needed to express the anger. Your body without words may express very evidently that you are angry. So even that is cross-cultural communication. For times we have seen people showing some kind of hatred in their eyes about others' religion, others, people from other economical background, other culture. So it without uttering a word, and the other person, the receiver, can actually sense it just from the body language. Even that becomes part of cross-cultural communication, right? So the cross-cultural communication refers to communication between people who have, number one, difference in the style of working. It's not always, the style of working is part of the culture, right? There are people who will, who come from a culture where the clients are, the customers are treated like God. There are culture where clients are not given much importance. It's the part of business. So style of working will vary from one culture to another culture. As we say, people from that community, from that city, from that country are very hardworking, very spontaneous, very sincere, etc., etc. I don't want to use, but we always believe people from north-east states are very good in service industry. They prove themselves very well in service industry because they have service orientation. We have seen people from Himachal Pradesh and other states of the country into hospitality because they are more courteous in their behavior than the people from North India. So I am not referring to any particular individual or community here, but I am referring to different geographical areas. So the style of working is different from one geographical, the people from one geographical area to another geographical area, because they are culturally different, right? The culture there, the deep culture at the bottom of the iceberg, that the underwater currents were to make them believe that it's important to have the feeling of service. So maybe they have grew up hearing this, practicing this, listening this, witnessing this. That's why they had developed the sense of service better than the others, right? So number one, the style of working, as I said. Number two, age. The culture we say the youngsters, this is the young culture, this is the culture in youngsters nowadays. How do we say that? Because young means that they are younger in age than somebody who is talking about it, than an elderly person. So we divide the society basis on the age, and we start believing that this is the culture in this age group, right? For example, people in teens are more outgoing, more towards fun, they are more fun loving, they are more outward, they are more open, they are more expressive. So this is a difference. If let's assume if there's a workplace where we have millennials, generation X, Y, everybody working, so they come from the culture where it's very common to go out for dinings, eating out, drinking, or maybe even working on internet. They are more comfortable. So this difference is of the age, right? So even that is deep rooted thing. A particular set of people from a same age group, they work differently, they behave differently, and they communicate differently, right? We don't use slangs, the kind of slangs being used by young generation. So this is another way to look at the difference. Then another thing is nationality. This is something we all can think very easily. A person from a different nation, different country is supposed to have different culture, is believed to have a different culture, right? So it also refers to that as well. Ethnicity. This is another, people are, we say this is ethnic food, ethnic outfit, etc., etc. That's what it is. So certainly this is another, point of difference when it comes to cross-culture communication. Race is very well known. Different from people from different races, they have different way to communicate. So people who come from one race, they when they communicate to the people from the other race, this is also would be taken as cross-culture communication. So race to race communication, a person from one race to a person from the other race, if these two are communicating with each other, it will be taken as cross-culture communication. So person from young generation to the elderly generation communicating each other is a cross-culture communication. From one country to another country is a cross-culture, cultural communication. One ethnicity to another ethnicity is a cross-culture communication. One style of working to another style of working is a cross-culture communication. So is the race and gender. Males talking to the females even is a cross-culture communication, which we do not believe. Believe me or not, because female has their own way to think, to prospect, to comprehend things. Males have their own way. So they are culturally, they are different from their belief system, right? A female has a different belief system in any country. And all these points are actually interchanging. Gender within one country and the gender in another country, how they communicate is different. Religion, of course, is something we believe that a person from that particular religion is more orthodox than the other, or for race, people from X race are more strong than another, or they are more weaker than the others. So if people are communicating from one religion to another religion, even that is cross-cultural communication. And if the people have different sexual orientation, we talk about lesbians, we talk about gays. So even if someone has different sexual orientation, even that is cross-cultural communication, believe me or not, right? So there are so many ways to think about when the cross-culture communication is happening. Under all these categories which I just discussed, if communication is happening, that will be taken as cross-cultural communication. Now, one thing I want to clarify, that people may think the cross-cultural communication is interaction, between the people from two different countries. This is a very common notion which most of the people have, and friends, that is a very wrong notion. It's not true. After discussing all those points which I just discussed, be it style of working, be it age, be it nationality, ethnicity, race, gender, religion, even the sexual orientation, all these become the basis under which, if the communication is taking place, we will call it as cross-cultural communication. So, cross-cultural communication is such a wide term, right? It has such a wide scope. There is another word which we use: intercultural communication, multicultural communication, cross-cultural communication. I am talking right away about the cross-culture, but there are researchers, there are academicians who you may find using inter and cross-culture common, but which I personally deny, right? So, it happens between the subgroups of the same country. A South Indian talking to a North Indian is a cross-cultural communication. A North Indian talking to somebody from the East India is a cross-cultural communication. So, believe me or not, it's not that people from different countries, if they are talking, it's cross-cultural. No. Okay. So, the last thing I want to discuss now is the elements in cross-cultural communication. So, there are 5 elements, whatever we have discussed, to understand cross-cultural communication. The first thing is, one should be aware that when we will perceive, this situation is a cross-cultural situation. I hope you all are clear that it's not the nation-wise, nation to nation, people from one nation to another nation. Even within the same department of the same company, working in the same city, we may have different culture. Yes. So, the style of working, that's why I said style of working, right? So, we should be aware that the cross-cultural communication is very wide. One department to another department in the same university, in the same college or same academic institution may, if they are communicating to each other, this could be cross-cultural communication, because the style of working is different. One department honors deadlines as deadlines only, another department take it so very casual, right? So, one should be aware about this thing, that what is cross-cultural communication, and should prepare for it. So, in cross-cultural communication, preparation becomes utmost important. I should be knowing that I am communicating to whom. The person comes from the same cultural background, be it working style, age, religion, race, nation, anything. I should be preparing for it. Then there should be sense of humor. It should not be always very serious communication, that I am talking to somebody who comes from other culture and I need to be very serious all the time. No. Excuse me, it is to be as humorous as comfortable to other. Then language is part of the cross-cultural communication, because language is not the only thing which is used for communication. We know it's 20% which is language, rest 80% is always non-verbal communication. Okay, so language is just one part of the cross-cultural communication. And the last element in cross-cultural communication is, a cross-cultural communication can take place only if the two people communicating with each other from different culture are open to communicate, right? Otherwise, there could be 1,000 barriers. So, openness is desired, is required in cross-cultural communication. Openness to accept others, to understand, or even just to try to understand others, right? So, these are the elements of cross-cultural communication. I hope it is clear that what is cross-cultural communication, what is the scope of the cross-cultural communication, and what are the elements of cross-cultural communication. With this, I would like to stop now for a few minutes and will see you soon. Thank you very much.